Hi guys, it's a new week and we have another first coming this week. We have our Unit 1 test. So this is our first distance learning test. If you did well on Quiz 1 and Quiz 2, I have no doubts that you will do well on the unit test. The good news is it's 12 questions, so that's actually not as many as we had on Quiz 2, so it's shorter than Quiz 2. I would recommend that before you finish this video, you go to Schoology. I have a new folder for Unit 1 test, and I have a little study guide review that I'm going to be going through on this video. So if you want to print that out or have it available, you can go do that now and then restart the video. If you don't, I would still recommend that you have some paper to write some things down. When we hear something and we write it down, it helps us learn it. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to be talking about two main types of graphs that you're going to see on the test. So one is histograms. Some of you are still struggling with histograms, so I really wanted to make sure we understand this. So I have 4 different histograms, and we're going to use those to look at the 3 things that I have written down. So the first thing is, on some of the histogram questions, you guys have been telling me things like the median. You can't find median from a histogram, so I haven't been giving you any points if you give me the median. So median you can only find when you have a bunch of numbers lined up, and we don't have actual numbers on a histogram, we only have intervals. So these numbers at the bottoms of the graphs, those are called intervals. And so we have those on a histogram, but we don't have the actual numbers. So can't find median. For that same reason, you also cannot find mean. So these are things you cannot find. You cannot find the mode. I'll come back to, some of you are saying, yes, we've done that. I'll come back to that in a minute. And then you also cannot find the true range. You can give the max it could be and the max and the minimum that it could be by the intervals they give you, but since we don't know the exact data, you really can't do the range either. So those are all things that you cannot find. Something that you can find the mode interval. That's not the same as the mode. So the mode interval is the interval that had the most. So that's going to be your tallest one. So on that graph, that would be the mode interval. There's a mode interval, and mode interval. And then another thing that you can find is you can find the number of data points. The number of data points is, if we knew all the numbers, how many would there be? So something that on this first one about temperatures in July, we could find out how many days they were looking at the temperatures. So we would add up, there's 3 in this interval, there's 6 here, 10 here, and so on. We would add all those up, and that would be how many data points there are on that graph. Same thing on the visitors to the mall. We can know how many visitors there were by adding 8 plus 5 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. The bottom 2 are both about test scores. So we can tell how many kids took the test by adding up all the bars. So we call that the number of data points. Those are things that you can find. And you could also find the number that were above or below a certain amount. So again, number of data points. And they will ask you on the quiz to find how many data points in a certain graph. They may not use data points. They could say how many kids took the quiz, how many visitors were there to the mall, and you would just add them up. Shape. That is something that we are still really, really struggling with. So we're going to look at these 4 graphs, and I'm going to talk to you about the shape of these graphs. So this first one, it's not technically symmetrical, but it's pretty close to symmetrical. So we would call that nearly symmetrical. The reason is your mode interval is right in the middle, and then it goes down about the same on either side. So symmetrical means same on both sides, and so that is symmetrical. The rest of these are either skewed or nearly skewed. So, or mostly skewed, however you want to say that. So this one is skewed. This one is skewed. And this one is mostly skewed. Now, a lot of you are starting to understand the difference between symmetrical and skewed, but the problem that I'm seeing is skewed right versus skewed left. So when we look at a skewed graph, most on this blue one, most of the data points are on the left. So a lot of us want to say that that's skewed left, but it goes down into what they call a tail. The skinny part down here is the tail. Whatever side the tail is on is how it's skewed. So this one is actually skewed right. And this green one, this green one is skewed left, because again, the tail down here is on the left. And then again, this other orange one is mostly skewed, and it doesn't have a really skinny tail, but again, most of our data is on the left, so it's going down toward the right. That's where the tail would be, so it's mostly skewed right. Okay, so that is the main stuff that you need to know about that. Now we're going to go on to box plots. Y'all are getting better and better at box plots. So one thing that you might have to do on the test is give some of the 5-number summary. So remember, your maximum is this line all the way to the right. And it's not this number. Now, technically on this one, 100 is the maximum, but if it went on, say, to 110, some of you are telling me 110 is the maximum. You're not looking at the number line, you're looking at the actual graph. So that thing with box and whiskers coming out, that's the graph. So the maximum on this one is 100. The minimum is 55. So again, some of you would tell me that the minimum is 50, but you're not looking there. You're looking at this line all the way to the left. So that's the minimum. Median is the line that's in the middle of the box. And again, not looking at the middle of the number line, the middle of that box. And so it's 85. Your upper quartile is the right side of the box, so 92. And your lower quartile is the left side of the box, which is 78. You could be asked for range or interquartile range. So range is your maximum minus your minimum. So in this one, it's 100 minus 55, which equals 45. So that's your range. And then your interquartile range is your upper quartile minus your lower quartile. So on this one, that's going to be 92 minus 78, which is 14. So if they were to ask you for interquartile range, that's all you have to do. So I believe that's about what you need to know for box plots. Last section we're going to look at is collecting data. A lot of you are still asking me questions about the word biased and unbiased. You want to be unbiased when you are collecting data. And so things you can do to be unbiased is that you want to, that's messy. You want to be random. So you could ask everybody in the population, but if there's too many, you won't want to ask everybody, but you do need to ask a random assortment of people, and you want to ask enough people. So let's use our school. We have about 700 people in our school. I wouldn't want to survey every single person in the school, but if I only survey 10 people, That's a very small amount, and that's not really going to give me a good idea of how the actual school feels. So if I'm being biased, I'm going to ask specific people. So maybe if I want people to answer that they like band better than choir, I might go ask band people, because if they're in the band, they probably like band better. That's not random, that's biased. And it can be biased if I don't ask enough people. So not enough people. So I could go to 5 of my band friends and they're probably going to give me the answer that I'm looking for. That's biased. So remember, biased means you're trying to get a specific answer. Unbiased is what you want, and that has to be random, and you have to ask plenty of people. And then the other thing that some of you are starting to understand, but some of you are still struggling with, is statistical questions. So a statistical question gives you lots of answers, not just one. And so I put a bunch of questions here, and you've seen these questions before. I pulled them from Odysseyware, but it says, how many books did the students at this school read over the summer? So anytime you're talking about a bunch of people, students versus just one student, that's going to be a statistical question, okay? So if it said, how many books did you read over the summer? That would not be, because that's only going to give you one answer. What is your favorite ice cream flavor? Okay, well, if you say vanilla, that's only one answer. Or you say chocolate, it's just one answer. That's not a statistical question because it only gives you one answer. How many letters are in the first name of each person in the class? So it didn't just talk about one person, it talked about lots of people. That's going to give us lots of answers. So that is a statistical question. How many hours do the students in this class sleep each night? So again, it's not asking just about one student, it's just asking about a bunch of students. So that is statistical. How many hours a night do you spend on homework? Not statistical, because that's just one answer. It's about one person. And then it's kind of hard to see this one down here, but it says, how many chocolate chip cookies, let me see if I can, were made in the bakery last week? This one confused some people because it talks about cookies, and that seems like a lot, but it's only talking about one bakery. So that's only going to give us one answer. Let's say they made 500. Okay, so that's one answer. Now, if it said, how many cookies did each bakery in the city make last night or last week, that's going to be statistical. So it has to give you lots of answers. Okay, guys, please come see me on Zoom before you take your test, especially if you think you need help. I will not unblock your test unless you have watched this video and you are up to date on all your assignments and the grades look pretty good. Okay, so good luck on your Unit 1 test, and let me know if you need help. See you later.